Today I've got a teeny-weeny little topic to talk to you about. I thought I'd go for something nice and small, get it in 10 minutes. The problem with democracy. How did I ever come up with that title? 50 years ago, Bernard Crick, a British political scientist, wrote a book called In Defense of Politics, and he talked about democratic politics and its magic. He described it as like a lover. Everybody wanted part of this concept to share its values, its magic. 50 years later, it seems fairly obvious that democracy and politics has lost some of its magic. And I want to just try and unpick why that is the case. And even the title of my talk is a problem, the problem with democracy. There is no problem with democracy. There are problems in the plural. And those that are multi-layered, multi-leveled, they're complex, they're challenging, but they will define our lives. The whole notion of a problem with democracy also accepts that a problem exists. And what I want to dare to try and suggest to you today is that maybe some of the problems with democracy, or what we interpret as problems, are actually the great beauty, that magic of democracy that we've forgotten about, that we no longer understand. Maybe democratic politics isn't failing us. Maybe we are failing it. So, here is my naughty little idea, my little thought that I want you to think about. And I feel at this point, I haven't got any slides or jokes or music or videos. I've only got this little bottle which I'm going to try and hide behind. Could the problem with democracy be that we have too much democracy rather than too little? Could it be that actually we have too much of the wrong type of democracy and too little of the right kind? That's my hook, that's it, I can go now. Leave it in your mind. But let me just give you my simple ABC. The A is for attack. What we have today is attack politics. It is shallow, it's aggressive, it's deconstructive. The role of governments is rarely to govern, it is to survive. The role of opposition isn't to question, it is to attack. Is it any wonder we all turn away in increasing numbers and don't want to play that game? But it's too obvious to say attack politics, because we know that. So let me move from my A to my B, to my bananas, to my benefits. The benefits of democracy are often thought to be the problems. Democratic politics is slow, and it's messy, and it can be hard to understand. It doesn't always deliver the right answers, because there are no right answers to complex problems. It's messy because life is messy. And what's really interesting, and this is why we need to re-engage and redefine our politics, is because the challenges we all face together do not abide by the traditional political boundaries. Our challenges are becoming more complex, from climate change to obesity to mental health. These are challenges that we cannot respond to as individuals, but only together. But the benefits of democracy, that slowness, that listening, that emphasis on compromise, is not a failure of democracy. It's the beauty of democracy. And let me turn it round and twist it one little bit. Could it be, if politics has a problem or if it's failing, that it's too easy to blame the politicians? Could it be that actually the public are to blame? Because I can't help but think sometimes the public are fickle. They want pain-free solutions to complex problems when none exist. They don't want politicians, they want supermen and superwomen who will come and find that magic wand, that technological fix, that pain-free solutions to the problems we all face when none exist. The challenges are great, but we will only get there if we redefine and understand what politics is about. And if you think of the benefits of politics are massive. It's everyday politics. It's electricity, it's clean water, it's living, it's police, it's healthcare. I once got into terrible trouble for suggesting that in some parts of the world, the public had become decadent. They no longer understood or realized or valued what democracy gave them. And I have a D with my A, B, and C, and my D is about default. I am not arguing to keep what we have and shouldn't we all be grateful. Quite the opposite. I'm arguing for a redefinition of how we live our lives, but one that understands what we have and how to move forward, rather than the risks that we will move towards an anti-political, the fashion at the moment. Just get rid of the politics, get rid of the politicians, and things will be fine. The benefits of democracy are all around. They are not perfect, but every day, hundreds and thousands of people risk their lives and die crossing boundaries in order to try to get to those democratic regimes. And that brings me to the B of butchery. That if you've ever been to a country that is not a democracy and see what people have to live through and put up with, the butchery, the barbarism, the fear society, when you come back, you sometimes have a different understanding of what we have, and that democracy is possibly more fragile than we understand. And another thing, a broad thing, a global thing, that globally democracy is the exception rather than the rule. Most people in the world do not enjoy the benefits of democracy. The whole idea of coverage brings me to my C. The attack politics, the Amazonian politics, creates a perpetual swirl of emotion. We need to somehow calm the storm. We need to understand that the way to rebuild democracy is about commitment and compromise. I even wonder, and this takes me back to hyper-democracy, the idea that maybe we have too much rather than too less. One of the founding fathers used this term energy, governing energy. That actually, if you elect somebody into office, you have to give them the capacity to make decisions and rule. Democracy is about a balance between holding people to account and letting them get on with governing. I sometimes worry, I know it's a terrible thought, that maybe the hyper-democracy in which we live, the rise of the watchdogs, the scrutineers, 24/7 media, the increasing role of the courts, freedom of information. Has anybody noticed that at a time when we have more democracy than we've ever had before, there are more discontented Democrats than satisfied Democrats? I'm not arguing in favour of an insensitive political system, but could it be that politicians have become too sensitive, hypersensitive to trying to listen to the demands of the people, too attuned to the latest Twitter feed or tweets, the front page of the Australian or the Washington Post, too scared to make those decisions that actually need to be made? Have we lost, as it were, a degree of balance? Which brings me back to my D, my default, that I'm not arguing to accept what we've got, but I'm arguing for a redefinition of politics. That brings me to the E, which is the end. I have no time, but the E is for engagement. That we need people to understand that voting matters because it is a form of public pressure. Not the form, not the only form, but you can engage in a whole range of varieties. The problem we face around the world today is that large parts of society, the poor and the young, are disengaging. They're not engaging. And I can understand that. My argument is, though, that even if you're not interested in politics, politics is interested in you. It will define your life. That's my nasty little thought, my nasty little idea. Maybe the problem with democracy as we live it today is not that we have too little democracy, but actually we have too much. Too much of the shallow, adversarial, cosmetic, nothingless politics, and too little of the deeper, richer forms of politics that we can really accept and drive forward in the future. That brings me to my final E and to the end.